so effective in the screen game this year?
I don't know. I think we've really, certainly made an emphasis starting with a downhill running attack and creating explosive plays off of that with the play action game. So I think there's been a lot of, recognize it's not a run, look to go protect the play action pass, and sometimes you can lose sight of those running backs.
When Ashton caught that ball on the sideline, what's going through your mind? I mean, he didn't, obviously didn't have much room on the sideline there, but he did have a little bit of space. So like, what's going through your mind there?
Yeah, I think I said it, maybe a couple times with him is you take your eyes to the call sheet for what's the next call. You think you've created a first down play, and then you kind of hear the roar, you hear the buzz, and again, he's just one of those rare talents. You get him the ball in space. It's one thing to know where he's at, but it's another thing to bring him down.
Spencer talked about this offense playing fast. He actually talked about the whole team playing fast, and that was the biggest difference over these last couple of weeks. How has that benefited your offense?
I don't know if we've necessarily been extremely different, Mike, from our plan. And again, I applaud this staff. I applaud these players. I think there's been a level of consistency for a long time now. But I do think when you do look at the last 3 weeks, I think there's a level of playing complementary, understanding what it's going to take to win the game on all three phases. And that's certainly critical when you look, certainly in these types of games we're about to play this week.
What has Spencer done differently that's made you say, yeah, okay, that was probably a smart thing to do now that he's head coach? Anything stand out to you?
I think I said this, John, a little bit. It's just being himself. I think you get into this situation and you think, oh man, now I'm in this head coaching role. I got to act a certain way. I got to be different. But he's been genuine. He's been exactly who he is. I think one of the best things he's done is he asked for 2 weeks from these players. And there was so much going on, even looking back at that New Mexico week, how to keep these guys focused. And it was that one day at a time, and certainly not being a cliche, if you will, but yeah, one day at a time, and I need you guys for 2 weeks. And because of the commitment of everybody in this building for those 2 weeks, it's created a third week for us. And I think it's been that approach, one day at a time, that he's done a tremendous job with. And I really, again, commend our players for the focus they've had.
So with everything that he's done, do you feel like he's done enough to be, validated for this job?
I think you guys asked me this when they named him as the interim. I know everybody sees this as a right now thing, whether he's the head coach here in six weeks, whether he's the head coach somewhere else in 6 weeks, 2 years. I think what he's done is he's let the country know he's ready, and so I know a lot of these decisions are there's a lot of factors that go into it, but leaders don't grow on trees, and he's done a tremendous job.
You've went through a lot this year. You're a high-level OC. Are you ready? Has this taught you stuff? Should you be considered for this gig, Bush?
Again, I feel ready, and I keep going back to this. If you're in this profession and you don't want to walk into a group of 18 to 22-year-olds and have the ability to lead them both on and off the field, sometimes I don't think it's worth it. And so I'm extremely excited for the opportunity, whether one day it happens here, wherever it happens. But certainly this experience has been another great teaching lesson of a lot of things that we're looking to build on.
Have you interviewed for the job, or will you interview for the job? Have you asked to interview for the job?
I have not had those conversations.
Is there enough time, Bush, is Spencer giving it to you? Because, you want to focus on the here and now, but you obviously, you don't know where your future is going to be. And as I said, high-level OC, like you have things you need to do too. Is there enough time for you to just focus on the now without trying to figure out what is next?
Yeah, I think, John, I think it's like, man, we go through this every year. We do, and I think maybe a younger version of me would have been looking at the what ifs and what's next. But I'll say this, 10 years ago, like if you asked me, could you be exactly in this situation at your alma mater, playing for a conference championship, which hasn't been won since 2019, I tell you, I'd take this any day of the week. So I'm very cognizant of that, and I think about all the situations maybe over the last couple of years, even at the success Missouri's had this year, what it takes to stay focused in these last couple of weeks. You don't get these opportunities every day.
What do you see from Taylor in the last 2 weeks specifically? It seems like you're putting him in really good positions, and he's taking care of business.
Yeah, I think Talen's so interesting because, you know what you're going to get with him. And I think that's the thing for him moving forward as well. I think, again, like 13 for 17 in that last game, did a lot of really good things. There's always those one or two plays that you wish you had back, and so I've always said this, I'm so fired up for his progression at this position because we know the high-end stuff is there. We know what those big plays look like when he creates them. We also know for the last 50 years at this position, it's always about, the decision-making, the accuracy. Those are the things, that are going to be so vital in his development. And I think, again, I've said it, his personality, who he is, allows him to continue to take those steps.
I know we brought up Fulton a couple of times, but I think we went in, I know it's just for one snap, whatever. What is he capable of, though, if you have to call him or something like that?
Yeah, you never really know. He hadn't taken a ton of reps by any means, but there is a certain level with Colt. Again, I've talked about these unsung heroes, if you will, of this club and a lot of teams across the country where that guy shows up and his situation may not be what he wants it to be, but he gives you everything he has day in and day out. He's been a guy that Talen's relied on. He's been a guy that Maddox has relied on. He knows the plans as well as anybody in the building. And so there's certainly a lot of trust with our staff and him.
I asked you about the screens a little bit earlier on. The athleticism of your linemen, how does that kind of factor into some of the stuff you're doing with that?
Yeah, Jay, I think it's huge. I do, because you look at all these screens. Again, the back kind of gets you what he can get on the front end, but it's those blocks 30, 40, 50 yards down the field that can really create a bunch of these explosive plays. So the athleticism we've had up front has been something we've relied on the whole year, running the mid-zone play, the wide zone play, if you will, forcing guys to play us laterally, I think has led to the top 10 in rushing in the country. And again, we've relied on that across the board.
Is Maddox in the building, and is he giving you a set of eyes? Is he being involved in Monday through Friday type stuff?
He is. We thought it was important last week. He was actually upstairs with me in the box. It's just tough. It's you look at a guy that you feel is every bit as responsible for where we're at right now and not getting to finish it. But those guys are the guys. I think there's a lot of guys that would probably take time off and be away. He's one of those guys that wants to be in the building. He wants to be at this championship game, and again, that's a testament to him and everything he's about.
With Friday, with the crowd surfing in the locker room, where were you at, and what was that? Was that kind of cool to see the way the guys have just responded to Spencer like that?
Yeah, it was super awesome. I think for me, it was like the first time my son was on the field after the game, and just with it being a 2 o'clock game, it was like not past his bedtime. So just a really special moment to be around him, my wife, my kids, and just experience that. Again, I've said this about this team. It's, you have those years maybe we've all had where things are going perfect and you get on these runs at 12-0 and all that, but I'm not sure I've been part of an organization that's gone through what this team has to get to where we're at, and it's been a great experience.
I think Matt Wagner's played in a couple of his opportunities, and obviously he made a nice little play for you on that touchdown run that day.
Yeah, awesome. Again, it's like there is no doubt in my mind, even before I got here, I remember going to a couple other colleges for camps, and they were talking about Wagner and how impressed they were with his high school stuff. But again, you just never know how a college freshman is going to react in big moments, and I think it's really a testament to him getting these big games and being able to handle that. He did not know that he was going to have that role till, I believe, Thursday last week. We lost Tyler Crow late in the week. He had to step up, and I think about a lot of guys on this offense. I think, again, we know about the veterans, we know about the juniors, the seniors, and how they've played, but you go back to guys like Cage Casey, you go back to guys like Roger Carrion, who have stepped up in big-time roles as young guys, and it's led to our success.
Do you have an inkling, an idea of what George is going to do? He has another year.
I don't, other than, other than knowing George is a veteran, and what would that make it? Would it make it 6 or 7 or?
Six.
It'd make it 6. I don't. I know the guy loves ball, but again, I think I think there's aspirations to play at that next level, and there's certainly he's taken a lot more hits than you and I have in our careers, and so I'm sure he'll figure that out here soon.
What do you think of Riley Smith's new equipment? Just rocking there.
None of these players have ever seen the movie The Program, but when he came out there wearing that thing, I was like, it took me like back to 1990, and he had the big neck roll on. So, but you know what I think of Riley again in his situation with a game or 2 left. A lot of guys would have shut it down, and for him to be out there and doing whatever it takes to make the big play he made in that game, can't say enough about him.
Yeah, how cool is it to see him get some production in that game?
Huge. Again, I mean, look, it's leadership, and it starts with the players. And when you got a guy like that who maybe things haven't gone exactly how you want it to go, but you show up here every single day with a great attitude, those are the guys you root for.
You've been coaching here for a while, or we've been coaching in Peer for a while, Bush. Have you experienced something like this team has the last couple of weeks with just this turnaround, with this special energy? Have you experienced something like this with what's been going on here before?
No, I think it feels different, and I think it feels different for sure. And I wish I had a better way of saying it. It's been a mixture of not just our staff, not just our players, but our support staff. I think everybody just kind of banding together, if you will, taking one day at a time, focusing on what's next. And it's been impressive, I think, in all phases.
I think Louder kind of ran a corner out towards the sideline, and Taylor, was that one of the better balls Taylor's thrown this year? I mean, that seemed to show. You said you see the ceiling at times. Is that a glimpse of the ceiling?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I really go back to this with him. I don't necessarily think it's he can't make this throw consistently. It always comes down to decision making at that position, when to pull the trigger, when not to. I really wanted to send a message to him, after that first interception, and be on the attack on that next play and throw that ball down the field. I think it's important. I think for a guy like that who I know that interception's probably going to be with him for the rest of his career, and me too. I don't even know if I have recovered from that yet, but we want to be aggressive, and I wanted to let him know, hey, it was going to take him being aggressive, making throws for us to win that game.
Ashton Jeanty, maybe the Mountain West Offensive Player of the Year. We'll find out tomorrow. What would your case be to make it for Ashton Jeanty? Do you have a personal number 1 highlight touchdown run he's had this year? You've seen him probably a million times on film.
Yeah. It's hard. I mean, I think there was that run versus San Diego State. In particular, I think it was maybe the ball was on our 35-yard line, just the amount of different guys that he made miss. My case for him is what does this year look like if he doesn't miss 2 or 3 games? I mean, I look at the production that he's put up. This is outstanding production for a guy, some of the best production maybe we've had in school history, for a guy that missed 3 games and probably wasn't fully healthy for another 1 or 2 games, So I think that speaks volumes to him, and I'm excited to watch him run for the Broncos for a long time.
What would be your case for Spencer Danielson if you were to,
Yeah, I think, so much of it is retention these days, and I think everybody knows that, right? Like, you got a lot of players on this team that need to stay at Boise State, and that's just the truth. This isn't a place you want to leave. There's no reason to leave this place. We've had 1st-round draft picks. We've had 2nd-round draft picks. We're a top 25 program year in and year out, and I think the resiliency of what we've done here in the last couple of weeks will lead to big years ahead. I think for a lot of you guys knowing, you talk about that Fiesta Bowl year that got this thing started with Zabransky and those guys. You look at the year before that, and you look at maybe starting 1 and 2, tough road loss to Georgia, tough loss to Oregon State. Sometimes it's the resiliency of these kind of years and these kind of teams that catapult you, if you will, to the future success.
One more about the O-line. With their consistency that they've had this year, every game day, how confident are you when you can line up and get something accomplished with those guys, or at least try to create some momentum with those guys?
Yeah, I think the run game, on the whole, Jay, if you will, and super confident. I mean, they are as prepared as any offensive line group I've been around. In a weird way, coordinators, you get to come up here and do these press conferences. I've talked about the job Tim Keene's done. I've talked about the job Nate Potter's done, Jimmy Montgomery, what those guys have done across the boards as impressive as I've been around. I think for Tim's sake, again, you see what this O-line's doing this year, but as you guys know, it goes back to the last 2 or 3 years recruiting those guys, developing those guys like Ben Dooley, Kate Beresford, Mason Randolph was a huge get here. It's a huge recruiting battle. And when you go win those battles, you start to see what it looks like when you have one of the more athletic centers in the country, and that's what you're seeing right now.
Anything else?
You made a reference to a younger version of yourself when you played here in 5, 6, 7, 8, 2005. Tight ends were featured frequently, and it seems like, aside from a 9-year touchdown year from Jake Rowe a few years ago, tight ends aren't as prominently featured, but it kind of seems like you're trying to bring some of that back. Is that something that's kind of intentional, or is that just kind of something that's coincidentally an opportunity that's presented itself, especially the last few weeks even?
Yeah, I think every week, you're kind of, you get in on Sunday and you start looking at who needs to touch the ball, and certainly as you guys know, I mean, again, I go back to fall camp, right? Like Latrell Caples was a huge loss for us, right? And then you go and you look at Eric McAllister not being here, and then you look at Shea getting hurt, and the list just kind of keeps going. And it provided some opportunities for those tight ends in the pass game, and I really think they've stepped up, and so in both these situations where we look at, okay, if we've got 45 plays on mixed downs, who needs to touch the ball? I think both Riley and Matt are in that discussion, and so that's what you're always looking at. You're looking certainly at the play design and how to attack the defense, but more so it's who needs to touch the ball, so when you make that bad call, they still make you look good. So.
Okay, talk about UNLV real quick. Kind of looking at UNLV's defense, it doesn't look like they're particularly great anywhere, but they're just kind of good in a lot of places. How would you kind of assess UNLV's defense and what you'll face on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, again, been dealing with these guys for a long time. Coach Odom and when he was at Arkansas in those 3 years, and Mike, I believe, was the linebackers coach there, and then took over when Barry left, and so these guys do a really good job. They've always had this great mixture of bend but don't break, but still have the ability to apply pressure. And we've talked about it a little bit, from being a little bit unconventional. These guys are not necessarily your standard style of defense, right? Sometimes they play with 3 D linemen, sometimes they play with 4 D linemen. Half the time they drop all the guys. The other half the time they play man in your face. And so they've done a really, really good job of putting this defense together for a lot of years, creating a lot of conflict, especially in 1 week's time, if you will, to prepare for them.
Anything else? All right, thank you all.
Appreciate you guys, man.
Thanks, Bush.